Perfect. Can you see my screen?
We can. So we're going to begin. Hello, everyone. Hello, students and educators. We are so excited to have you join us for Career Exposure Week. My name is Chelsea Hunt. I am the Executive Director of Work-Based Learning and Industry Engagement at the State Department, and I will be your moderator for this session. We will hear from our guest speaker, Pawel Matkowski, Project Manager at Google, and then we will have a Q&A session that I will help field any questions to Pawel. This session is being recorded and will be archived within the Oklahoma Career Exposure Week online module. Also, we will send out the links to the recorded sessions to everyone who registered for this session. Please join me in welcoming Pawel Matkowski, Project Manager at Google.
Hi, everyone. Great to be here. My sincerest apologies for the issues with the audio and the video and everything. And to be honest, I do not know what happened. We literally tested it yesterday and everything was fine. But of course, as always, things don't go the right way. Thanks for taking the time to actually, well, hopefully discuss things with me. We have a short presentation. Well, short is maybe a bit of an incorrect statement here, but I'll do my best to actually go through the slide as quickly as possible so we can leave the open field for discussions and for all the questions you may have. Cool, so I think we can kick it off. I'm Pawel Matkowski. I'm actually originally from Poland by way of California. And right now I am temporarily based, or hopefully for long term, based in Oklahoma City. I'm a product manager at Google. I lead some of our product areas, product development. Basically, it means building new products with Google. So today's objective of the presentation is going to be actually to tell you a few things about Google and to show you that everyone actually can join Google depending on the stage of their career and the stage of their education. And we have tons of different opportunities open up for people with different completely backgrounds and different including levels of education. So we can go through that in a second. So we're going to talk about Google. We're also going to talk about something that some of you may have heard about, but maybe not necessarily. It's called the alphabet. If you want, and if you have your cell phones with you or other devices, then you can actually look it up what that is, but we're going to talk about it in a second. Secondly, what does Google actually do? There is a lot of things we do. Some of them are less known and others are more. We're going to show you some examples of the cool, fancy little things that we're actually building across the world. And then I'm going to try to tell you guys a bit about our culture, innovation, how we include people, and how diversified our community of employees is. Cool, so let's get straight to it. What is the alphabet? So all of you know Google, which is the search engine that most people know and most people hopefully here use. There are other ones, of course, but there is also something else called the alphabet. Alphabet is basically a company that Google built out just for some stock exchange stuff that now governs Google, as well as some other sub-companies that you can see listed on the slides on the left-hand side. These are all those fancy companies you hear about every single day. For example, I'm sure that during the COVID-19, you have heard about the company called Verily, which actually helped track and distribute not vaccines, but testing for COVID-19. There is also, as you can see, Google Ventures, which invests in small startups. There's the very famous Google X, which is basically our fancy 20% innovative futuristic projects type of a company that deals with some of the things we're going to talk about, like in the past, self-driving cars or flying balloons or drones or robotics and so on and so forth. There's also a few other ones that are less known. For example, Sidewalk Labs, which had the objective of building a truly digital and IT and AI-centric city somewhere in Canada. There's also Google Fiber, which deals with high-speed internet. And of course, there is the famous company that hopefully most of you have heard of, which is Waymo, that is building right now self-driving cars or building the technology for self-driving cars. On the Google side, however, most of you know the search engine. Hopefully, most of you also know Maps, Android, which is, of course, built by Google. There is also some of our advertising business, which is the core of our entire company. And then there's all the fancy stuff like YouTube, which hopefully most of you actually watch, Nest, all those home devices, as well as some hardware, like the Google Pixel phones, Chromecasts, and Google Home devices like speakers and video conferencing tools. Cool, so what was Google? As you all probably know, in 1998, Google was created in a garage by two, at that time, young, now a bit old, let's not get into that, guys. Right now, Alphabet, which is Google, is more than 120,000 employees across the world, spread out across more than 150 offices in 60 plus countries, which can also show you that it's a massive company with amazing opportunities. And yes, it's true. Our employees actually do move between offices as we go, which means when you start a career at Google, you have the opportunity to move to a different office, to visit the country, to do some more sightseeing, and to get to know the culture and different experiences abroad. Okay, so you all know about Google, all those famous things like search engine, YouTube. There is also all those less famous things, which is, as we call something that we call it moonshots. Moonshots are basically huge problems that require a radical solution and a breakthrough technology, which means it requires people without restraints that feel safe in what they are doing to be able to bridge the gaps of reality and to design for the future. Things that today may seem ridiculous and not necessarily applicable, but in the future may be able to solve our biggest problems ever. That is something that we have created some time ago called the Google X, which is our factory for fancy things. One of those latest innovations actually in Google X has been Stadia. Stadia, most of you hopefully know PlayStation and Xbox. Stadia is basically a cloud gaming service, which is a service that does not require you to have all those fancy big boxes like the latest PlayStation 5 or an Xbox, but instead just plug in a Chromecast and you're able to play any type of a game online via an internet connection without requiring that connection to be very strong or very high speed. Next one, just as an example of what we do, some crazy things, is Project Loon or Project Wing. Project Wing is basically the drones that are supposed to deal with delivery and other services in the industrial area. Project Loon, however, was our amazing shot at delivering internet around the world to different people. For what it's worth, Project Loon was started by a young person somewhere outside of the US with the concept that, hey, we need internet in Africa and we need internet, for example, in South America. That person proposed a design on their own and later on was funded and Google started building or started conceptualizing how a balloon could deliver internet while orbiting somewhere in the stratosphere. And that became Project Loon, which spun out of the Google X moonshot factory, as I mentioned, where everything starts, and became its own company over time. The most common one that you may have heard of, and actually this is the one where the smartest minds of Google probably work right now, is the Waymo, which is our project for a self-driving car. I don't know how many of you have had the chance to be in California. If you ever are, and especially in the Bay Area, which is Mountain View and San Francisco, you're definitely gonna see those cars roaming around the streets on their own, even bigger than the one that you can see in the picture. Funnily enough, they are as ugly as they can be. This is hopefully off the record, and we can maybe cut that out, but they are extremely, extremely ugly. Hopefully in the future, the technology will improve and that little UFO thingy that you see on top of the car will disappear and will be substituted with something much more miniature size. So amongst those moonshot things, amongst our products and stuff, we have 1 billion plus users across our core 8 products. Now it's actually even 9, which is YouTube, Google Search, Gmail, Google Drive, Chrome, Maps, Android, and so on and so forth. With all of that, it means that we require very, very smart and especially very creative people that come up with amazing concepts, can collaborate together to build amazing things going forward. We have 4 foundations as to how we make those things happen. And these are basically the things that we actually are looking for in our candidates: the curiosity, agency, collaboration, and risk-taking. Many of you may think that actually to join Google, you need a high degree, some sophisticated background, or God knows what type of an IQ, which is completely not correct. Most of the people actually at Google are simple people who have amazingly curious minds and want to do great things, build great things, help businesses grow, or help other people achieve other things. So let's go through those 4 foundations quickly, and then we can actually go through the questions. What is it all about the curiosity? It's all about two things: wonder, experiment, question, play. Sorry, four things. Wonder, experiment, question, play, which means basically one thing. When you join Google, everyone is expected to ask questions, to explore, to come up with new ideas, to introduce new concepts, to actually redesign how Google thinks and how Google succeeds. Without that, we would not actually have been where we are today. One of the most amazing things about Google that many of you probably have seen so far is all those playgrounds, gaming areas, and the places where everyone not only feels safe, but also feels like they can be themselves and can grow their creativity. This is all about Google. This is how Google started, being an unconventional company with all those amazing playgrounds. Just to be very clear and a bit more down to earth, some of those places do not exist today, meaning we have, as our offices have grown, of course, some of those gaming areas, Xboxes, consoles, and so on, have been moved to other areas. That being said, there is at least one place in every single campus around the world where you can find a place to play Lego, play Xbox, play PlayStation, or use that fancy, as you can see in the top right corner, thing that can allow, I don't know actually how do you call it in English, that allows you to move from one floor to the other and just slide down. I think it's a slider. All of that comes with a word called Googliness, meaning a person who is humble, curious, conscientious, which means a person that is able to thrive in ambiguity and loves to learn. And basically, just to be very clear, these are all the requirements that we have. We want you to be able to join the community of other people, to explore, to learn, to contribute on your own way through who you are, not necessarily through what others would expect you to be. And that's actually what the word stands for. And a nice and funny thing is that actually when we do interviews at Google, that's how we start. We try to look in people for those traits to make sure that when they join, they will thrive in this sometimes chaotic environment that Google is. Let's move through the other ones, which is collaboration. One of the key things for successful companies around the world is actually collaboration. And Google thrives at that, meaning yes, every single product, every single feature, every single department has its own teams. But those teams, sooner or later, start collaborating with each other to build what today you see as an Android or Google Maps or YouTube or even the search engine itself. The ability to connect with people, whether it's someone in Japan in real time through our tools, whether it's the Google Hangouts, which I would hope work a bit better than the Zoom today, or Google Drive by sharing presentations, are the things that allow us to actually to express ourselves and to be there where we not necessarily always are able to be. And the last but not least, the most important one probably, which is the one I referred to earlier, is the risk taking. Those moonshots, whether it's Project Loon, the flying balloon thingy, the Project Wing, it's the self-driving car that one day will actually be a fully self-driving car. All of that comes with one thing, taking the risk. And I'll be very transparent with everyone here. I have been there. I have had the amazing opportunity to take the risk and build my own 2 products invented from scratch and actually do something really amazing for people around the world, help them grow, help businesses grow, in my case, as well as help them through the COVID-19 pandemic in the role that I'm currently at. There's a famous word, like a sentence that we always ask, which is, what would you work on if you knew ahead of time you wouldn't fail? Why wouldn't I start that tomorrow? The point of it is that whenever you think of something, that thing is possible to be made possible at Google. And that's what Google is all about. When you join, you can be whoever you want to be. You can be yourself. You can build things that you want to be, to actually explore and to create basically a new future for everyone else. I think I'm going to pause at this because due to the technical difficulties, I think we have had some issues, and as a result, we're running out of time. So I want to make sure we actually can have a meaningful discussion. One thing I did want to add is that I have never had the opportunity to even think that I would be able to join Google. I grew up in a small country, which is Poland. I also grew up in a tiny bit of a city, which is less than 80,000 people. I graduated from high school, and never ever would I have imagined that I would be in the United States working from Google as a product manager, building my own products. So just please be mindful that there is nothing that is impossible. It's only your desire to create something or to actually be somewhere else than you are today. We're going to share the presentation afterwards. There's a few more slides. I know we're running out of time, but I just want to be very clear that every single one of you actually can join Google at any stage. Across operations, across technology, engineering, marketing. And the only thing that is required is ideas, creativity, openness, thrive in ambiguity, because sometimes things get hectic. So as long as you have those traits, you definitely are super extremely welcome to join Google at any time. So let's do some questions, as that will be fun.
So Pawel, we have a first question, and it says, what are the 2 products that you invented?
Yep. Well, so unfortunately, those products are still confidential at Google. So I'm extremely sorry, but I cannot share the details. What I can tell you is that it's going to be a technical term, but they are dealing with first-party data, which is data that is owned by all those companies that you go to. And they are making sure that that data is used in a very privacy-first way. That's all I can say, unfortunately. My apologies.
Oh, we definitely understand. Are there any additional questions for Pawel today while we have this wonderful experience of Google and IT careers with us?
Please be open, like ask any questions you want. I'll do my best to literally answer. One thing is I do need to emphasize before questions, if there's any questions, like please don't feel like, because I know that this has been common, like this applied to me as well when I was your age. Please, you cannot feel like you cannot join Google. I'll be as transparent as I can be. You can join Google. You can create your own path to joining Google or any other tech company, and you do not have to have a fancy degree. Yes, for some of the roles, you may need a bachelor's degree for example, machine learning. Sometimes, however, if you're actually very passionate about something, you do not need a degree. All you need is experience, practice, and great examples of your work. At Google, we value that more than anything else. And just to be very clear, I do have an amazing team of engineers. Some of those engineers do not have a degree. So, which is a perfect example. They graduated from high school and they were just passionate about coding. They started coding in Python, in Java, learning on their own from grounds up, literally with no knowledge whatsoever. And over time, they are now actually amazing engineers at Google. Just by practice, just by consistency, persistency, and the drive to do something meaningful. So like you really need to trust me. I know it's hard. There's a guy from Google talking to you in Oklahoma City, and he's saying that we can join Google. It's actually true. All you need is passion and the drive.
I love that you said that, Pawel, because it ties in nicely with, we have a couple of questions. One is, we're all very familiar that Oklahoma is a rural state. And so for those students who maybe live in a rural community, just curious to know, just having your story and your background on Google, can you share a little bit more specifics on how, if a student has lives in a rural community and maybe doesn't have the resources to some IT or technology careers, how they could get connected to Google or just even to that industry?
Okay, so that's an awesome question. I think one one way, of course, yes. So there are two ways to connect. If you're looking for a career, that would be Google Careers. So if you open that amazing search engine, google.com, and write Google Careers, you're gonna see our big website, and you can try to search through careers based on the different locations. But if you want to reach out to Google to ask for questions and stuff, please do not hesitate to reach out to me. Chelsea has a contact to me, and I'm really extremely happy to answer any and all questions. I think one thing that I would strongly recommend, and by the way, Chelsea, if you can maybe translate it to me again, I'm Polish, so I'm not necessarily maybe addressing the question, but rural community means outside in the suburbs of the city. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay, so I think one way, so just to be very clear, you do not need to be in the city, but there are two things. You need to have, of course, that drive, passion, knowledge, and expertise, which you can build on your own through courses. By the way, there's amazing resources on Udacity, Udemy, Coursera to do your own stuff, and you do not need any experience. Second is, you can reach out to Google if you want to apply for a very specific role. That would be google.com/careers, I believe. That's the link, but you can search for it, and you can search through different opportunities around the world. Please be mindful that a lot of those opportunities due to the pandemic are currently probably canceled and on hold. But as you know, everything is getting back to normal slowly, so I assume in the next few months that should be back on track. And secondly, if you would like to discuss something more detailed and have some detailed questions, please do not hesitate to reach out. I'm super happy. I do it in the Bay Area, and I'm super happy to help. Not to mention that way I can compensate for the technical issues.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Pawel, another question for you. It's a personal one. How old were you when you decided you wanted to join Google?
That's a cool question. So technically, I didn't. Google found me, and that was a tricky part. But being very transparent, I actually was 26. So I joined Google at the age of 26. Please keep in mind that it's a personal experience, but Poland and the US are completely different countries, to the extent that in Poland, everyone is told one thing: you have to graduate. And to be honest, in Poland, if you do not graduate, you will not be able to be successful, basically. We are not taught to take the risk. We're not taught to be passionate and just drive things. We are always taught about one thing: take the degree. And by the way, in Poland, bachelor's degree does not matter. No one cares. You have to have a master's degree. It has to be a master's 5 years. So automatically your career is a bit constrained because you start your career after you graduate, which is 24 years old. So you actually here in the US have the amazing opportunity, like all those resources when I was younger that were not there, like Udacity, Udemy, Coursera, to do your own courses while you're in high school, to learn, whether it's coding or project management. Product management is a bit more tricky, but project management, engineering, data science, you can all learn it online with no issues whatsoever. You do not need that sophisticated degree. And as a result, you can start that Google career much, much earlier. One way to do it, actually, by the way, would be through internships as well. We have an amazing internship program, which would allow you to join Google and that internship way ahead of you graduating university, and even without the university degree after high school. There are special programs for actually that area as well.
That's nice that you said that, Pawel, especially tying it into a question about, are there any summer programs for your students? And then also a question kind of correlating with your experiences and growing up in Poland and your country. Just curious to know your background. Have you worked for any other IT companies, or as an IT staff with any other companies besides Google, in addition to Google? I'll say it like that.
Yeah. So with regard to the summer program, single, they're divided into categories. One of them is for students with a bachelor's degree. There are those ones that are during the course of the university, and we have also one for after high school. Sorry, Miguel? Oh, I thought it was a question. So that's one thing. So we do have them, which is awesome, and they are always published just please be mindful. COVID sort of messed everything. Probably on hold after high school. So I'm probably on hold right now. With the career, good question. Work in consult. So we do have see names that exist there, which were, oh my God, amazing experiences, but I couldn't have imagined myself in such a constrained environment, and I needed to do something more creative and actually be myself, and took me out of it. So yeah, that being said, I can tell you that when I was younger, actually your age, high school, that's when I started. It's gonna be a funny story. Hopefully, you can cut it out so that no one is tracking me afterwards. But jokes aside, when I was actually in high school, the first thing I wanted to do is start coding. And when I started learning coding, accidentally, just to be very clear, accidentally, I broke the security systems. So it's hacked into my local small government completely without knowing that that happened. But it was a very nice learning experience that was actually fun, and with other stories to tell over coffee. But yeah, sometimes it takes that curious mind and you guys starting from scratch with something very small to do great things afterwards.
Well, Pawel, it was so inspiring, especially to hear about the coding piece. That's always good to see how that connects with IT careers. We are going to wrap it up today, and I just want to thank you, Pawel, again for just sharing about Google and IT careers and how students can get connected, and even sharing your story. We appreciate that. And I also want to thank all of our students and school districts for joining us today. And we hope you continue to join us for Career Exposure Week, especially this afternoon at 10:30, we have another session. So Pawel, again, thank you so very much. And thank you all for joining us today.